Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the full council meeting on the 25th of February 2025. Just a reminder to everyone, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. Moving straight onto the agenda. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence. So far this evening, I've received apologies from Councillor Bain, Councillor Ben Clark, and Councillor Jay. Is there any more apologies?
Apologies to Councillor Ben Price.
Thank you ever so much. Okay, agenda item 2 is to receive the minutes from the previous meeting, which is dated the 21st of January 2025. Is there any items that need to be raised regarding these minutes? Can I ask for a mover of the minutes? Oh, Councillor Wood, straight out of the block. Can I have a seconder of the minutes? Oh, Councillor Margaret Clark. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you. Any against? That's carried. Thank you very much. We're going to go to item 3, which is declarations of interest. Does anyone have any interest they need to declare at this point of the meeting? Okay, thank you. So before we go on to item 4 on the agenda, I'm going to be mentioning item 8, which is the Local Governance Boundary Commission for England's review of Tamworth Borough Council and electoral wards. I've just got to read a statement. The Local Government Boundary Commission has considered the implications of the Government English Devolution White Paper on its work programme and the impact it has on the electoral review of Tamworth Borough Council. Following a meeting last week, the board decided that in light of these considerations, it would be appropriate to pause the review for the foreseeable future. Therefore, item 8 has been deferred from today's agenda. I will also just point out as well, as item 6 is relevant to this, we are deferring item 6 as well, and that has been discussed by the council that put the motion forward, so that has been agreed. So we're going to go back to the agenda item now. So item 4 is to receive any announcements from, I haven't got any. Is there any from the leader of the council? Oh, Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have some alterations to the portfolios that the Cabinet members have. We are now putting markets under Councillor Arkney, heritage under Councillor Lewis Smith. We hadn't put health and safety anywhere. That needs to be under Councillor Foster, and the new local government reorganisation and devolution will sit with me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any announcements from members of the Cabinet? Councillor Arkney.
It's not a new announcement. I just wanted to speak quickly on heritage. Also to remind you to invite people to your ball. I just wanted to say that it has been an honour to look after heritage for the short while that I've had it. It's been really excellent to see how innovative and passionate the team looking after our heritage at Tamworth Borough Council is, and how much community interest there is in Tamworth, including from our MP, Sarah Edwards, who's been so enthusiastic about her support and who last week brought Chris Bryant to our castle for a visit. Feels like a long time ago, but it was last week. That said, my portfolio has been really busy this year, so I'm really grateful to my colleague, Councillor Lewis Smith, for taking over heritage, considering his success in bringing back face-to-face services in Tamworth Borough Council with the reopening of Marmion House front desk, and as his job as a history teacher and his day job. I'm really looking forward to seeing what your influence brings on the heritage portfolio, and markets being so closely linked to local economy and the Future High Streets Fund, both of which form part of my portfolio. It made sense to come to me, and till relatively recently was quite a quiet addition to my portfolio. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything from the Chief Executive? You got anything, Stephen? No. I'm going to hand over to Councillor Oates, because I know he's got something to say.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to take a moment to express my sympathies and condolences to former Councillor Ron Cook on the passing of his wife last week. I think many people in the room will remember Brenda, and behind every good politician there's a partner who's extremely frustrated and wound up, but they're always there when you get home. Brenda fulfilled that beyond most people's capacity, as Ron, with his political history, famously a Labour mayor and then a Conservative leader of the council. Within this game, sometimes you lose your friends and colleagues along the way and have to make new ones. And I just wanted to pay tribute to Brenda and how she dealt with that and looked after Ron throughout the year. So it's just to express my sympathies and condolences to Ron Cook and wish him all the very best over the next couple of weeks, which are going to be challenging for him.
Thank you, Councillor Oates, and yeah, we all share our condolences to the family. Okay, we're going to go to agenda item 5, which is question time. We're going to go straight to members of the public. So the first question, under procedure rule number 10, Simon Goodall will ask the Leader of the Council, Councillor Carol Dean, the following question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In definition, what is Tamworth Borough Council?
Councillor Dean.
Thank you for that question, Mr Goodall. My response is, Tamworth Borough Council is a local government authority responsible for providing a range of services in the Borough of Tamworth.
Thank you very much. Mr Goodall, do you have a supplementary question you'd like to ask on that?
I do, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And thanks for Councillor Dean for the answer. Why does it appear that the Chief Executive is the face of the Council, quoting in official Council communications, appearing at the recent Tamworth FA Cup football match, and then the Holocaust wreath-laying ceremony? Does the leader not agree that this is actually one of her duties and functions as the elected leader?
Councillor Dean.
Thank you for that supplementary question, Mr Goodall. As I'm sure you'll appreciate, leader's job is quite busy. I also have a full-time day job, or more or less full-time day job. I get to as many things as I can, but there is always sometimes when people can't be in every place. And on both of those occasions that you've mentioned, I did have alternative things. And just for a point of interest, today at 11 o'clock, I had 4 meetings scheduled at the same time. So by the nature of that, something is going to have to go, isn't it?
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go to question 2, which is under procedural number 10. Simon Goodall will ask the Leader of the Council, Councillor Carol Dean, the following question.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. Does the Leader agree that the controlling group should be sweating all the assets of the town for the betterment of the residents of Tamworth?
Councillor Dean.
Thank you for that question, Mr Goodall. The council holds a number of commercial and industrial buildings for investment purposes. Occupancy rates in these assets have typically been very good, and they service a particular need for smaller businesses in Tamworth. The council continue to make the best use of these assets as a means of generating income for the council, whilst at the same time providing business and employment opportunities. There is an ongoing piece of work around asset management to consider the future of the council's assets, and this is to ensure that they receive the best outcome for the council.
Mr Goodall, do you have a supplementary to that question?
Certainly do, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And thank you for Councillor Dean again for her answer. I think we've heard that the council resources for the people of Tamworth is important to the Leader. And so, as this year's budget will be voted on and indeed passed tonight, I would suggest some thought being given to certain Tamworth assets. The real Mayor's change is largely ceremonial, as we all know. And while I appreciate the historical significance of the change, I would have thought that prioritising the well-being of our residents is paramount during times of financial strain. Only a couple of weeks ago, the Leader quoted that the council finances were in a dire strait. So in light of this and the local government reform, when Tamworth Council will no longer exist, using the monetary value of this asset could have a profound and lasting impact on the community, which I'm sure fits in with the controlling group's priorities, and wouldn't diminish the role of the authority of the Mayor for the short time TBC have one. Such an action would enhance the council's reputation, demonstrate fiscal responsibility and innovation in addressing funding challenges that the Leader believes the council has. Would the Leader agree?
Councillor Dean.
Thank you for that supplementary, Mr Goodall. I think I've taken from your question there that you think it would be a good idea for us to sell the mayor's chain? Was that what I was getting from that question? I think at this point, yes, we all know, you know, nobody can refute the fact that our finances are not in a good position, and we have had to work hard to get to the position that we are today. In Tamworth, we have quite a lot of really good assets. We have this building we're sitting in, we have the castle. All of those things are being looked at. There's an awful lot of work going on around that, and this is something that we've talked about since we were elected. In fact, something I've been talking about since I was elected in May 2003. So the piece of work to look at all of these special assets that we've got has already been started. And we are being assisted in this by our MP, who's been lobbying government and national organisations on our behalf to see how we can bring about a good heritage strategy for Tamworth, which would include all those things like the mayor's chain and those expensive artefacts that we've got.
Thank you for that. I'm going to move on to question 3, which is under protocol number 10. Ron Brown will ask the Leader of the Council, Councillor Dean, the following question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When will our council realise that the quality of live streaming of our council meetings, which last month attracted a mere 17 viewers out of our entire 70,000 plus population, is extremely poor and failing to even remotely meet public expectations of a quality video service? Or if there is already a plan to address this, will it kindly publish complete details and its timelines?
Councillor Dean.
Thank you for that question, Mr. Brown. I can appreciate the concerns that you've raised regarding the quality of the live streaming of these council meetings. I share them, and you're not the only person who's raised them. And as we've always said, it's the aim of the Labour Group to ensure transparency and accessibility for all our residents. And I acknowledge that the current standard of live streaming is not meeting those expectations. Therefore, I'm pleased to inform you that we have already initiated a plan to enhance the quality of our live streams. This improvement will coincide with the relocation of committee meetings to Marmion House. This was approved by Cabinet in September 2024. A tender for the procurement of the new audiovisual equipment is currently open and will close on the 7th of March. And following the evaluation of those tenders, the successful provider will be appointed accordingly, and the installation schedule will then be coordinated. So not only will live streaming be better, but we will also have that opportunity in the council chamber where better accessibility for people to get into the council chamber, and a lot more space. It won't be that squashed row of chairs at the back of the council chamber, so it will be better facility for everyone to access our meetings.
Mr. Brown, do you have a supplementary to that question?
A very brief one. Thank you very much for that reply. The only thing remaining for me to ask, I feel, is can we have a date that these things will be implemented and visible to the population?
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I haven't got a specific date. I have a random one of around end of April, May time. We are hoping that definitely as we go into the next year, municipal year, we will be starting our meetings from the council chamber with all those proper AV things in place.
Thank you very much. We're going to go to question 4 from members of the public. Under procedure rule number 10, Mark Hopkins will ask the portfolio holder of Cooperative Council Community Partnerships and ASB, Councillor Sarah Daniels, the following question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What actions are the council taking in the next 30 days towards keeping the public safe as possible in view of the notable increase in violent crime in the borough?
Mr. Hopkins, thank you not only for your question, but for the continued scrutiny that you and Mr. Brown offer, both at surgeries and come along to these meetings. It matters. And it's a really important question. Yeah, as you've raised recently, there was a horrific high-profile case that's being investigated by Tamworth Police, and Generally, from what some of my friends and family have said when I was preparing for this question, people say that they don't always feel safe in our town. It is not a feeling that I share, even walking as a woman home alone at night, but I need to acknowledge residents, this isn't about kind of us and our own feelings. Perception is important. When there are national surveys on what matters to people, safety always comes first, be it at a national or kind of local level. So I hope that some of these points will kind of reassure, but do acknowledge that there may be difference between data and perception. In the last quarter, in terms of information that I receive as part of my portfolio, instances of antisocial behaviour were down, with the police relating to a 22% reduction, and that was in the last 12 months. In terms of the town as a whole, there are fewer instances of all types of crime in comparison to neighbouring police areas. However, where there is a hotspot, and I must acknowledge it, is the town centre at the end of weekend nights when the effects of alcohol come into play. Tamworth Police have and will continue to have in those 30 days a police car or van stationed in the town centre on Friday and Saturday nights. The previous support that the council offered to the Pub Watch and Community Safety Partnership will continue, along with the support for Street Angels, who have recently been given the King's Award for volunteering. This group have been working to roll the Walk Safe app with businesses, which can obviously go out beyond the town centre, designed to give reassurance, particularly to women and girls, around safety. The Community Safety Partnership works together for monthly licence checks, so past months and then going forward, and they have kind of awareness events at least twice a year that kind of go out and give the public information. In general, they show that their predictive economy nighttime graph has a 10% reduction in total incidents. Indeed, across all crime types in Tamworth, police report a decrease of 8%. However, a report is going to be given to Infrastructure Safety and Growth Committee on the 5th of March to outline their priorities for the Crime and the Safety Partnership for the next year, and to action plan to address that high profile case, the cases that do exist, and of course perception. And we'd just like to kind of say, I think as a council as a whole, that we acknowledge how shocked Tamworth residents were to hear about the crime in Glasgow. Our thoughts are of course with the victim and their family, and we're confident that the police will do all they can to bring the person responsible to justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr Hopkins, you have a supplementary question to your first one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for your answer. I won't make any further comment about that. Right, my supplementary. When will the council adjust its focus of attention away from TikTok, tickle-tackle, and actively address the alarming rise in violent crime in the borough?
So if it's all right, just to refer back to that previous answer, we have got in terms of data a reduction in crime overall, but it's about perception. And you noted social media, the way that things can be discussed, to the degree where often we've had comments from the police saying, please do not discuss in detail so it doesn't prejudice a case. In terms of the work that goes on with the police and us, that Crime and Safety Partnership, that's got to be based on robust data. What are the police seeing? What are residents reporting to us? Our responsibility too of encouraging people to contact 101. What are kind of the police and our kind of safety partners seeing as they're working and kind of going around the streets, charities as well. They've got to go on data, it can't be on social media. We know that's a really effective tool, to kind of get a temperature of what people are saying. It can amplify feelings, and sometimes we know it's not even accurate. Thank you for the question.
Thank you very much. Going to go question 5 from members of the public. Mark Hopkins will ask the Leader of the Council, Councillor Carol Dean, the following question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Will the council leader please provide a statement on what actions can be taken against either employees or councillors who issue commitments or permissions which are not authorised to issue, which they are not authorised to issue?
Councillor Dean.
Thank you for your question, Mr Hopkins. Both employees and councillors are governed by a number of policies, procedures and regulations that make clear the decision-making process. The appropriate action, therefore, will depend on whether the individual is an employee or a councillor, the nature of any unauthorised commitment or permission, and any applicable policies or codes of conduct. What I would say, though, is if you feel anyone, councillor or employee, has breached these rules, I would ask you to put your concerns in writing to our monitoring officer, please.
Mr. Hopkins, you have a supplementary question linked to the first one?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm going to go with this anyway. What actions have been taken against councillors or employees who have issued documented permissions or commitments far beyond their authorised powers, as in the case and the copy I hold in my hand?
Copy, yeah. Yeah, we don't know what it is, that's the thing. So, Councillor Dean. But yeah, I don't think.
I think I would need to look at that and take that to the monitoring officer, please. And we will have to come back to you with a written response.
Okay, thank you. That's questions from members of the public. We're going to move on to questions from members of the council. The first one, under procedure rule number 11, from Councillor Paul Turner, will ask the leader of the council, Councillor Carradine, the following question. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What explanation does the leader have for the lack of support and very poor communications between Tamworth Borough Council and our local hero, Spudman?
Councillor Dean.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Turner. Further to the recent issues raised by a street trader regarding the plans for the return of traders to St Edith's Square, the council has taken steps to make and maintain contact with individuals concerned in order to achieve a resolution. I can't speak tonight. The focus at this time is to ensure that any issues are resolved as quickly as possible. I have written to the Chief Executive for an effective engagement plan to be in place as soon as possible. We've also initiated a review of the communication and consultations relating to the Future High Street Funds programme throughout the life of the projects. This will include consideration of the approaches taken. This review process will identify lessons learnt and any changes that may be required. And once this is completed, we will be happy to share the outcomes of it.
Councillor Turner, do you have a supplementary to the first question?
No, thank you for your answer.
Oh, cheers, thank you very much. Okay, question 2 is under procedure rule number 11. Councillor Samuel Smith will ask the leader of the council, Councillor Carradine, the following question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last year, Ben Newman, better known as Spudman, was honoured with the Freedom of the Borough Award, a recognition reserved for exceptional, voluntary, professional or philanthropic service. Spudman has genuinely drawn thousands of unique visitors to Tamworth. Is the current controversy over his pitch a reflection of a complete lack of commercial awareness and failure to recognise the valuable asset he and his offerings bring? Thank you.
Councillor Dean.
Thank you. Thank you for your question, Councillor Smith. The council values all its street and market traders, and it does recognise the unique contribution that has been made by Mr Newman in raising the profile of Tamworth as a destination and for bringing visitors to the town centre. The Future High Street Fund programme has been in progress over several years and will dramatically improve the appearance and facilities in the town centre. Designs for St Edith's Square were agreed by a project board on the 17th of April 2023 and subsequently agreed by the Planning Committee on the 8th of October 2024, and this included the planter. As a listening council, we are working to respond to the concerns raised by Mr Newman and other members of the Tamworth community with regard to their priorities for the redesign of St Edith's Square. The improvements brought about by the Future High Street Funds will be further enhanced by our new town centre regeneration strategy and economic development strategy, which will drive the council's approach to supporting all businesses in the town and further our plans for future investment in the town centre. Our events team will be working proactively with Mr Newman to ensure that we are working collaboratively to support his entrepreneurial approach to town centre events.
Councillor Samuel Smith, do you have a supplementary to your first question?
Yes, thank you. I think one thing to recognise is we are where we are. The Future High Street Fund is existing. I don't recognise the conversations in regards to what was decided in the sense of the specific issue of his pitch and the closeness to the this flower bed. If somebody actually had walked into a room and said that this pitch is located literally on the flower bed, then of course that would have been raised for any of us on the controlling group at the time. I think this is a great example, as in Spudman, is a great example of the private sector really in Tamworth. And essentially he's a brand, and what I'm trying to get at is we need to separate this entity, this positive, which is from the High Street Fund element of it, and treat this as something that we can utilise. And of course, I'm sure Ben is very much happy to work with this, work with us. Sorry. So I would just ask if you can accept that this offering, that is Ben Spudman and his brand, is separated, and actually we use our resources to work with Ben as much as we can to obviously provide some better outcomes for Tamworth and the local economy.
Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. In response to the first bit of your question, only today your leader, Councillor Oates, has reminded us that all market traders went to a meeting in 2023 where they were shown the layout of what the new town square will be. So I won't say any more about that, but there has been ongoing dialogue around that. And I'm sure you will know from being on this side or being in control that things cannot be done quickly. It would have been very simple for me to have said, oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff on social media, let's just change our plans. But we all know that to turn any plans round within a council is like turning round an oil tanker. There are so many bits that we have to make sure that we're doing the right thing for everybody, that proper thought is being taken on every part of the plan, which is what's happening at the moment, and we hope to have a resolution as soon as possible. But there are various departments that are having to look at the different elements of this, as you can imagine. So, as I say, we're hoping to have a response soon, and that everybody will be satisfied with the response.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go to question number 3 and procedure rule number 11. Councillor Tina Clements will ask the leader of the council, Councillor Dean, the following question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could the leader of the council explain why there are no events planned by this council, I'm aware of others happening, for International Women's Day on March the 8th?
Councillor Dean.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Clements, but I am going to ask Councillor Smith, as it's his portfolio, to give you the explanation.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Clements. I appreciate the dedication and effort that you've put into championing this event. It's a remarkable achievement to have established it, and I understand from the Deputy Chief Executive that your leadership played a key role in its success. However, I understand that this year the event was not included within service plans, and unfortunately the necessary resources were not available to deliver it. I want to reassure you that this was not a political decision, but rather an operational one, as the Deputy Chief Executive and officers must prioritise their work plans accordingly. As you said, there are other events going on in the town to commemorate International Women's Day, such as the Walk and Talk, which starts at the bandstand in the morning, and I'm pleased to see that the Royal British Legion is delivering the event this year, with Tamworth Borough Council fully supporting it by providing the town hall at no charge. Additionally, the PR and comms team has offered to assist with promotional coverage and media sharing to enhance its reach, and I really wish you all, every success with this event.
Councillor Clements, have you got supplementary to the first one?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Councillor Lewis Smith has alluded to, for the last 2 years I organised the event within the council with little or no cost to this council. I did it myself. So I'm really struggling to understand why it's a resource and a capacity issue, or is it that we just don't want to highlight the contributions of female members in our council and in our community?
I'll send it back to Councillor Smith.
I understand the frustration, and I can only hold up my hands and apologise that the council has not directly run any events this year. But going forward, I will ensure that officers are held to account, and we look to make sure that next year the event is given the focus and attention it deserves.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to questions from the member number 4, which is under procedural number 11. Councillor Samuel Smith will ask portfolio holder of People Services Leisure Engagement, Councillor Lewis Smith, the following question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last December at the full council meeting, I asked the portfolio holder for People Services, Engagement and Leisure what steps were being taken to improve communication between Lightspeed, the council and distressed residents. We were informed that the leader and the executive were scheduled to meet with the managing director of Lightspeed the following day to agree on future communications. In January, the chair of the Infrastructure Safety and Growth Scrutiny Committee raised this issue again, and it was noted by Councillor Stratham that our MP would be meeting with Lightspeed and that an update would be provided. Assuming these meetings took place, can you confirm if arrangements have been made to enhance communication, particularly ensuring residents can voice their concerns and that issues raised are swiftly supported and actioned accordingly? Thank you.
Councillor Lewis Smith.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Smith. I can confirm that the meeting mentioned during full council proceeded as planned, and Councillor Statham, let's get your name right, also fed back the MP's meeting with Lightspeed to Infrastructure Safety and Growth Committee last week. The meetings were productive, and Lightspeed indicated that the programme is a government-sponsored initiative aimed at benefiting the town and enhancing services for residents. Lightspeed also pledged to ensure clear and effective communication with Tamworth residents going forward. They agreed to meet with all members if necessary and expressed a willingness for the future collaborative efforts. Additionally, I'm pleased to confirm that St George's Day, oh my God, we're all messing up our words today. St George's Day event this year is generously sponsored by and supported by Lightspeed. Lightspeed has listened to feedback and applied lessons learned from their initial work and implementation, and they are now engaging with affected communities in a different way. In my own communications with Lightspeed, they've offered to send representatives out directly to concerned residents to discuss the issues they are facing, which shows they have taken on the feedback and are being much more open and direct with those that are concerned. The communications team has worked with Lightspeed to ensure that members receive information and copies of their communications with residents. 2 letters were shared with all members in the bulletin on 10th of January 2025. One was a general introduction and another was regarding the installation of poles.
Councillor Samuel Smith, do you have a supplementary to your first question?
I do, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thought that was a bit of a cheap plug, actually, in terms of the sponsorship on St George's Day. Given the situation we are in terms of the complaints and the sort of feedback, I would particularly, in this case, probably stay away from them, certainly for this year anyway. Although I'm a fan of private enterprise, but this I don't think particularly has a great place. All I'd say is on this one is we need to separate what we're actually responsible for. Clearly on this issue, in many aspects of it, it's something that's within the orbit of obviously the county, Staffordshire County and national government. So we need to understand really what our role is in this and what we can actually do. So I'm all for Lightspeed telling us that actually they're trying to improve their communication. That's fine. But what can we actually do when we get the sorts of complaints from the residents, whether that be complaints for issues in front of their houses, whether that be for vehicles that are just left parked for days at a time or even weeks in some cases, or whether there's just a feeling of sort of harassment with many of these reps who are just going around in packs, to be honest, trying to oversell their product. So I think we need to kind of tilt this more towards what we can do to listen to the residents of Tamworth, to know that their feelings are really being heard, and we have a robust complaint and comment system as part of that as well.
Thank you for your reply. Yeah, the reason why I mentioned about the sponsorship is because it's very likely that Lightspeed will have their own stall there to be able to communicate with people on that day. So that would be another opportunity for them to improve their communications with residents. In terms of what we as a council have done, that they've said about coming in, infrastructure and growth committee decided that that probably wasn't the best thing to happen. Other councillors have set up meetings with Lightspeed, such as Councillor Kingston, to create that dialogue between us and Lightspeed. And also, as I've mentioned in my initial response, my communications with Lightspeed has led to them saying that they will send out representatives to the houses of the residents concerned. So it's not just a letter, it is someone face to face. So if people do have those concerns, they can get in touch directly with Lightspeed through their emails, and they are arranging face to face communications with those residents.
Thank you very much. Okay, that ends question time. Agenda item 6, like I say, we deferred it. We're going to agenda item 7, which is corporate vision, priorities plan, budget, medium-term and financial strategy 2025 to 2026. I'm going to hand over to the Leader of the Council to present the report. Councillor Dean.
So before us is the report on the corporate vision, priorities plan, budget and MTF 2025-26. This is based on draft budget assumptions contained within the report, and the headline figures for 25-26 are a general fund net cost of services of £8,646,540, a transfer of £148,939 to general fund balances, that the Band D council tax will be set at £208.76p, an increase of £6.06p, which equates to a 12p per week increase, and that is on a Band D property. That's an increase from £2,002.70 from this year. A transfer of £409,240 from the HRA balances. General dwelling rent increases will be increased by 2.7%, being CPI plus 1%, and this will increase average rents from £107.50p in this year to £110.40p, which is just shy of £3. And a 2025-26 general fund capital programme of £2,512,070, which is 7.163 million over 5 years. And 25-26 housing capital programme of £11,147,590, which is a 51.047 million over 5 years. As everyone will be aware, this has been an extremely difficult process given the poor financial situation we inherited from the previous administration. Within this budget, there are changes, but we are continuing to protect statutory services, at the same time continuing to review value for money on how they are delivered. But I feel it's important for the people of Tamworth to know why we've had to make these changes. Tamworth Borough Council isn't unique in this. Over many years, we've seen local governments starved of funds and councils have had to make tough decisions about cutting funding from services relied on by their residents, while at the same time increasing council tax. But even the previous administration had lobbied their government with regard to our inadequate settlements. And while we may have hoped that the new government would be able to give us an increase in our settlement, given what they inherited, we understand why this was not possible. And although we have identified significant savings, we are still using balances over the life of the MTFS. These will be exhausted by year 4, which means we can't be complacent and must strive to make the savings that have been identified work. Also, we still have the uncertainty around the impact of the business rates. The business rates reset, which is planned for 2026-27. And we have been promised that there will be a 3-year settlement next year, which should help us with future planning. So we've worked hard to address the previous budget forecast, which was unsustainable and would have led to the council hemorrhaging much more of its reserves. We've made sure that we have done this in a transparent way, and I'm pleased that all councillors have had the opportunity to be involved, understand the situation and have their views heard. As I said in the opening bit, we are increasing the council tax by the maximum amount of 2.99%, and that, as I said, equates to around 12p a week. We've also continued to invest in both the general fund and the housing revenue account capital programmes, with increased spending on maintaining housing stock and for the disabled facilities grants and adaptations. We're also aware that there are challenges around the local government reorganisation and devolution, that we know that there will be challenges that this will bring. But we have to remain focused on protecting the most vulnerable within our communities while we go through this process. Do I need to read the recommendations now, or when people have debated? After.
Yeah, we still need a proposer and a seconder for it. Does anyone want to propose it? Okay. Yeah, Councillor Couchman proposed it. Second, Lewis Smith. So, because of that, now we go to any questions of the budget. Any questions? The budget. The report. Okay. Does anyone want to? Oh, Councillor Couchman has a question.
Can I ask how many members of the public have visited the front desk at Marmion House since it reopened?
Right. So the front desk at Marmion House has been open for 3.5 weeks and it's been extremely successful. I must admit, when we were first looking at introducing the front desk back to Marmion House, I actually was quite nervous when it was being first scrutinised, because the figures from the assembly rooms were only at 44 people a month. And whilst we're on about opening the front desk at Marmion House, we were being criticised for overestimating at 200 a month. However, during this extremely short period of time, we have seen 586 people through the door. So to delve into those numbers a little bit deeper, 75% of those people have required a face-to-face service, with a vast majority of the remaining 25% using self-service facilities.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to have to interrupt. How is this relevant to the budget report? That's what I just want to know. How is this question relevant to the budget report? We're here for the budget. So, Councillor Couchman, if you could explain how this is relevant to the budget.
It's relevant because it's about the amount of money that we're spending and what we have spent and what's going to be spent going forward, and about protecting the vulnerable.
I'll let Councillor Lewis Smith finish his answer, but in future, can we all... we're here for the budget. Can we all just make sure we're focusing on the recommendations in the budget as well? We've read through. Thank you, Councillor Lewis Smith. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No problem. That's fine. Right. So to delve into those numbers a little bit deeper, 75% of those people required a face-to-face service, with a vast majority of the remaining 25% using self-service facilities. Even if we wrote off those other 25% of people as people coming in just to see what all the fuss was about, which I can assure you they're not. But even if they were, it would still mean that in 3.5 weeks we saw 440 people require face-to-face services. So that's the same amount of people that the TIC would have seen in 10 months. So these few weeks alone show the need for the service, and it justifies the costs that we have put forward towards that service.
Thank you for that, Councillor Smith. I've got a question from Councillor Samuel Smith now about the budget, I hope.
Yep, it's about the budget, and it's precisely page 160 of the main report. So my question is, the financial resilience plan outlined in Appendix J is an important part of the savings strategy and goes towards noting the concerns of the peer review. However, I feel that this plan lacks robustness. For example, many of the comment sections in the table are empty. Could you confirm what oversight you or other members will have on this plan? Additionally, would you consider making this resilience plan more bold and impactful? Sorry.
Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Councillor Smith, for that question. I haven't got it in front of me, so I can't. Yes, I have got it in front of me now. Right. I think with this, as with all the policies and stuff that we're putting forward, as you would expect, we will be expecting these to be scrutinised at the various committees. Can you just refresh my memory on what the last bit of your question was?
So basically, I'm just hoping, would you be looking to make it a little bit more bold and robust in terms of the resilience plan?
Right. As I'm sure you know, all plans like this are a moving feast. We will be reviewing as we go along. I would welcome your input if there are certain bits that you think need to be more robust. And I suppose what I would say is these plans have been out and been scrutinised, so people have had the chance to do that. But we still welcome any comments because they are a moving feast. It will go on, into next year, and any comments that can improve things for us and for the people out there will be welcome.
Thank you very much. We got any more questions? Councillor Oates.
I have a number of questions, Mr. Mayor, but we'll kick off with this one. Page 35 details the new corporate vision and priorities for the council. Specifically around item 6, environment, and also item 1, prosperity and place. I wonder if the leader could point to specific policy changes which relate to delivering on those priorities within the vision, Mr. Mayor.
At this point, no, I can't, but I will send you that in writing where they are in the budget.
Councillor Oates.
Mr. Mayor, based on that response, would the leader not agree that actually there are no policy changes within this budget that relate to delivering the vision, and we can only assume that they're using existing budgets rather than allocation of new resource to achieve the vision that they have put before us, Mr. Mayor?
As Mayor, I'm going to abstain, because I always abstain. You know that? Yeah. Okay. Well, Councillor D.
No, I wouldn't agree that everything has been looked at through the corporate plan for the budget to align to the corporate plan. So I will be happy to take back those bits that you have specifically asked about and get that response back to you.
Is there any more questions? Oh, Councillor Samuel Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 47 notes pay rewards as risks. What are the details around this in terms of why that is a risk in itself, pay rewards?
I can only say that any time we are looking at pay awards, there is always going to be some movement on this, isn't there? We never know what the outcome of anything like that is going to be. I'm sure everybody in this chamber knows that it has to go through negotiations with unions and other bodies. So I think this is quite sensible for that to be there, that it's a risk, because we don't know what the outcome of that will be.
Any more questions? No, going back to the council heads now. Got a little test match here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 112 identifies that in year 2 of this budget cycle, there is a transfer from balances of £3.8 million. Page 56 refers to the, as described, estimates in relation to business rates. And that shows a decrease in year 2 in terms of our receipts from business rates and the settlement. Both of these, as described in the introductory speech and previous questions, are estimates. Therefore, would the leader stand by their position last July that balances should not be used at all, if at all possible, to balance a budget, and things should be done within year? As we have an estimated business rate settlement and an estimate of £3.8 million from balances in year 2, is the leader comfortable with the statement that they made last summer?
I think I'm quite happy to stand by the statement that we shouldn't be using balances to balance our budget. Unfortunately, that's the position we're in. And as you say in my opening piece, I did mention the, let me see what it's called, the business rate reset, which we're still unaware what the outcome of that will be. And, you know, at this point, I'd like to thank Jo Goodfellow for the work that she's done in trying to make those estimates, because it is really difficult to be trying to put this budget together when there are some variables. But we all know, everyone in this room who's had to go through this process knows that sometimes there are some things that you can't be certain of, and it is that best estimate. And we're thankful that we've had someone like Jo working on this and been able to come up with the figures that we have before us.
Thank you. We got any more questions? Or are we going to go to, oh, Councillor Kingston? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just looking through this and going back to Councillor Couchman's question, which I think was a very valid question, but we'll leave that just there. We've had a question tonight from Mr. Goodall about assets and all that sort of stuff. I'm looking at printed page number 106 with reference to Marmion House. And at the last meeting in January, I raised the point as to why are we progressing with the reopening of the council chamber. You've said tonight, in response to, I don't know whose question it was, that it's gone out to tender and the closing date for tender was is the 7th of March, which is in a week or two's time. Great. If you look at page 106, it uses the figure of, in AST1, of £242,000 for the Marmion House. I presume part of that is front desk. Reversal of savings. My point is, given devolution, and you've said that you expect Marmion House to be ready roughly by the start of the next municipal year, given that local government review and devolution sort of will see us gone by 2027, maybe 2028, my question is, could we not save some money by stopping now and continuing with the service of holding meetings in this room? I get the bit about accessibility, I get the bit about improved technology, but that ship sailed. We know we've only got a couple of years left. So why invest taxpayers' money in a service that is going to be literally wiped out in 18 months' time? We could save money. You've given us that date to the 7th of March. Stop the procurement, is my suggestion to you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll start, Sarah, and then I'll bring you in. Councillor Daniels is going to respond to some of this, but I want to make a personal thing about this. I do not think this room is fit for purpose for what we as a group have always said about the accessibility for people to be able to take part in our democratic process. You've heard from Mr. Brown today about how the AV stuff is absolutely useless. I don't want that to go on for another couple of years. There was already money put aside in a budget for this to be updated in this building. So we haven't said that this is a new thing. We have just changed the venue of it to a more appropriate place so that we can include more residents in our meetings and fulfil that pledge that we made about making us as a council accessible to people. Councillor Daniels.
Good evening, my fellow teacher. Yes, I'm about to make a school anecdote. I lead the budget for my English department, and every single year we buy new copies of the text for the students to annotate. I hope they're going to use it for their exam revision. I cannot say for definite. Occasionally we see them strewn across the path and they're delighted the English literature exam is over, but it's a cost that is going to go out and be useful for a couple of months, but it is really important in that time because you know it helps. As part of the decision on Marmion House, we have asked for scrutiny. We're asking for scrutiny tonight. This is a really valuable process to explore it. We've got previous budget setters. We'll be setting a budget next year. And I need you to know that we've made this decision thinking it's going to be the best for our residents in the time that we have left as Tamworth Borough Council. The words I'm going to use are not mine, I'm afraid. I'm plagiarising another former councillor who said, just remember your due diligence. Your duty of care is to now, for the next couple of years, to do what you think is best. We'll see what the future holds in terms of the organisation afterwards. But I appreciate your question to scrutinise why that was made. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Samuel Smith, Councillor Oates and Councillor Lewis Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this question might get me into a bit of trouble, hopefully not. Obviously, as part of the budget, there's consultations with the public, and that feeds into then decisions around what to spend money on. One of the there was a public consultation outlined on page 49, and although I respect obviously the opinions of the public, and I do feel I've got my ear to the ground in many of these issues, I'm quite surprised by some of the feedback that came back on this, notably 3.11 on that page, which mentions that service areas most frequently suggested where there should be less funding include customer services. Well, I doubt you would agree with that yourself with the opening of the reception. We also have the assembly rooms and free outdoor events, Tamworth Castle and local heritage. Now, there has been a sense of some of those in previous years when they've done the consultation, but I would ask to look more into that because it depends really who's being contacted. Clearly, if you're those in need of social care or any aspects like that, clearly you're going to want the funding to tilt more in that direction, and absolutely understandable as well. But we are in a position where we need to be more commercially aware. We need to look after our assets and our investments, and we need to make sure that essentially we are growing as a local economy. So it's just caught my eye, so I would ask, would you be looking into that in terms of the public consultation? It doesn't even mention in terms of numbers of residents that are actually surveyed in this case. Will you look into this and get a little bit more information on the detail?
Thank you for that question, Councillor Smith. Yes, it's certainly no use doing any public consultation if you don't take note of what the answers are. This has been something that this side has spoken about a lot. I was going to use a really bad term then. I've spoken about quite a lot because we're really passionate that we go out and we find out what the people want, because we can all sit in here and have our own views about what is the best, what we will do to people, but we need to be speaking to them, finding out what they want. I think the thing for me is that we do this in the best possible way. I know from anecdotal evidence of former years that we maybe haven't managed to get to many people, and then the results are meaningless. If you've only contacted a couple of hundred people in a town of nearly 80,000 people, then you haven't got the right information. So we want to make sure that we're going out and seeing people. And that actually brings me on to the State of Tamworth debate and how we think that the format that should take, because we think the whole point of this State of Tamworth debate is about going out and speaking to the people of Tamworth. So we will be looking at that we've asked for some reports and options to come back, but my personal opinion for that is that we go out several places, speak to some real people and get some real ideas from people about what they think. How would, put our hands up and say, how do you think we're doing, and be willing to sit there and listen to what the people have to say.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Oates, then Councillor Lewis-Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in two parts. Earlier under question time, the matter was raised around assets, particularly going forward with local government reorganisation. The leader then explained that assets will be reviewed, or words to that effect. And I just wondered, and there's two parts to this question. One doesn't relate to the other, actually. If our assets are being reviewed, where has that instruction come from and which officers are involved? I don't need specific names, and why is there no resource within this budget to do that? Are we assuming there's existing resource within the deemed tight budget and tight financial situation that we already have? And the other one was just a technical bit while we're on assets. Page 87, there's a list of commercial and industrial property. Miscellaneous corporate property, does that include all our other property, whether it generates an income or not, outside of housing, obviously? So I just want clarity on that. And the other bit is, these asset reviews, there's no budget line to suggest any additional resource, so is that being met by existing budgets? Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Oates. With regard to the asset review, that is well underway, so it wouldn't necessarily be in next year's budget. We are literally waiting for a report back on that. It's been something we have wanted for a while, because it's a really important part of our whole plan going forward, to know exactly what we've got, what condition it's in, and what we may need to do with it. Around that bit about the commercial aspects, I would need to find out about that and write to you the response.
Before I'll bring councillors in quickly then.
Just come back on that. Yeah, I appreciate there's an asset review taking place. Obviously, local government reform has come along very quickly. So I would assume that asset review was in the guise of we're reviewing our assets, whereas now the context has changed. So I'm guessing there'll be a supplementary piece of work to do with the context of local government reorganisation and the additional challenges that brings.
Councillor Nova.
Thanks. Yes, so I think a question about budget. This has been something that has been planned for a long time. For the asset plans that have come out of the asset strategy that we probably all saw last year, I saw it, it came through council. The individual asset plans, which are commissioned, will look at each of the groups of assets that we hold as a council. There's lots, as you know, and it will give us options for each asset type, and it will tell us information about it, like yield, use, future potential use, and investment needs. And from that point, we'll take a decision on each asset. So devolution is coming. We'll know more as the asset plans come up, and at each time the asset plans come up, we'll have to make the decision on each asset based on what we know at the time. So.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call Councillor Lewis-Smith. Thank you for being patient.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's not a question as such. I just wanted to add a little bit more context around what Councillor Kingston mentioned regarding reversal of savings. So Marmion House savings, which you've mentioned, were previously built into the budgets because they were related to the complete closure of Marmion House and the assumption that alternative accommodation would have been found for the council. So As members will know, there were attempts to find a new home for the council, and there was a failure to get grant funding and other options such as relocating the entire council to Ankerside were deemed to be too expensive. The previous administration decided not to spend the large sum of money that it would have cost to go with either of those options, and rightfully so, so we decided not to do that either. I've said it many times, but I'll say it again, the continued use of Miami House is the most cost-effective option that we've had for both continuing the continuing home of the council and the front desk as well.
Any more questions? Councillor Clements.
Didn't want to me to speak then. Just on page 51, bullet point 3.22, introduction of charges for Sunday parking, 100k additional income. What is this figure based on? Where have you got your numbers from and regarding Sunday parking and how many vehicles are coming into town?
Yeah, I can answer that. So, sorry, the Sunday parking specifically. So recently we did undergo a lot of consultation on car parking. That's where the increase in car parking fees came from. Sunday car parking was based on local area expectations, so places like Lichfield that are similar to Tamworth. There is actually a commissioned parking survey which is due to take place soon, which will give us more robust information about how people use our car park, specifically in Tamworth. It was supposed to start a couple of weeks ago, but it's been delayed because of the work in town. We didn't think it would be an accurate view, but that will give us a much more in-depth insight into actually how people use our car parks and give us much more robust data to make those calculations from.
Thank you very much. Are we still doing question time, or do you want to move on to debate? Is there any more questions? Questions? No. 3, 2, 1. Okay, well, questions done. So we're going to go to debate. So if anyone wishes to speak, remember you speak once and a maximum of 10 minutes each. Does anyone want to kick this off? Sweet, this is going to be short. Anyone want to speak? Oh, Councillor Clements.
Somebody has to. I've got to be honest. For me, this is not a budget for the residents of the people of this town. To me, this sounds too much like an officer-led budget because it's the easy option. That's just my personal opinion. Sorry, Councillor Statham, you can look at me how you like, but that's my personal opinion. I had to email twice to get the line where Armed Forces Day support was. And I'm pleased, Councillor Lewis, that £1,000 is in the budget for this, so you didn't give me a job without any budget to do it, so thank you for that. And also, with your plug of Lightspeed sponsoring the St George's Day event, perhaps there's a little bit more money that could go to Armed Forces, who knows. We have the leader of the council reporting that her administration inherited a financial mess. I'd like to draw her attention to the minutes from last year's budget, and I'll just read one point of that. Councillor Thomas J, the leader of the council at the time, I'm proud that once again we have set a strong budget, one that continues to prioritise the things that are important to local people, and more importantly, it balanced over 3 years. So my point is, you took over in May, the budget was set in February. What happened in the space of 8 weeks that it was such a financial mess? And it's, you know, we've got you reporting in the Herald, Carol Dean, council leader, the financial situation that you took over. Beggars belief, really. So what happened between February and May, for the financial budget to be in such a mess when it was a 3-year balanced budget? And we can't lie that it was a 3-year balanced budget because the officers are here to back us up. So tell us what happened.
Thank you very much. Anyone wishing else to speak on the debate? Oh, I think Jeremy wants to make something.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I could see by the glee on your face that you'll welcome this amendment. I'd like to move an amendment to the budget in front of us and obviously speak on the substantive motion at the appropriate time. So the first amendment I would like to move is that the figure in recommendation 12 is revised from nearly £149,000, is revised down to the £49,000. And the £100,000 from that is therefore used to remove the Sunday car parking fees from this budget. If you look at the end of year 3, there's £1.166 million left in reserves after year 3. The minimum requirement is £500,000, so you're still legal, you're still in the right place. The removal of the £100,000 still balances the budget, but it also removes Sunday parking. The first point of the vision was to promote business growth. We have a national insurance employers contribution, we have a national minimum wage, and now we have car parking in the town centre. That is not supporting business growth. That is simply taxation, 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 Mr. Mayor. I therefore move the change from recommendation 12 to take £100,000 off there, to remove the need for this council to add another tax in terms of Sunday parking, which you may as well call a tourism tax, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Kingston.
Happy to second that motion and reserve the right, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is there any questions on that they want to put forward? Nope. Anyone want to go to debate? Oh, Councillor Simon Smith. Member, one time, 10 minutes max.
Just like to absolutely support this motion. At the end of the day, we're trying to increase growth within the local economy of Tamworth, trying to get visitors, residents, tourists, whatever, into the town centre. So we have to give every opportunity for them to be able to do that. I don't believe particularly that parking charges generally is the right approach when we're trying to position ourselves more for growth. Absolutely, I support this.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak on the debate to this amendment? Councillor Harkney.
Thank you. And thanks for raising your concerns. I do recall there was a cross-party all-member consultation on car parking, and the idea for Sunday parking came out of a cross-party conversation. I would say that over the last 10 years, there has been, since 2010, there has been no increase in car parking at all in Tamworth. The latest increases represent about a 22% increase across all of our tariffs, which there's a 50% increase in inflation, so it's much below the inflationary rate. I think we value our town as a tourist destination, like Lichfield, like Stratford, like other places where people want to go. I think people want to come to Tamworth, and therefore will pay a small fee on a Sunday to park and use our facilities, a fee that means that we are able to make an income for Tamworth Council and deliver more important services to our residents.
Yeah, Councillor Daniels.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I note that on the 1st of November 2023, the Cabinet approved an additional car parking income following price increases. I'd also like to quote our colleague in Lichfield, the Conservative leader Doug Pullen, who said there is no such thing as free parking. Parking needs to make sure that those car parks are safe, you need to make sure that there is CCTV on it, that it's in the right position, lack of potholes. If we have that additional income, maybe those car parks can be assisted along with everything else in the town. I think we are a council who knows that there have to be charges because it's paying for a service that is needed, and that therefore those services then go towards us as a council being able to improve lives for our residents. This budget is designed to help them all.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to bring the comments together and start off with the comments from Councillor Clements about the idea that everything was okay last year. Last year, we were in a national publication as one of the 10 most at-risk councils for our finances. In our corporate peer review, one of the lines said, "You must do something about your finances urgently." I'm coming on about the car parking. That's fine. So consequently, the discussion around car parking is is one of those not one of those savings, one of those items that we've looked at in how we can change our finances and make some increases. It's in line with the green waste thing. As Councillor Arkney has said, the car parking charges haven't been put up forever, so it's been left to us to do it. The green waste charge was taken out of reserves. We've had to take that decision that it should be paid for by the people who use it. So this is just something where we can't expect council money to be taken away from those vulnerable people who we are passionate that we look after to give cheaper parking for people. So the research that's been done on this, we're in line with other councils. We're not going out on a limb and saying Tamworth is going to be the place that's going to charge you on a Sunday. Everywhere else you go won't be doing it. We're just falling into line with other places who have had to take these difficult decisions.
Thank you. Just to let you know, before I go to Councillor Statham, if I can hear people saying things under their breath and that, I'm pretty sure the public should be able to pick it up, so just be careful what you say under your breath. Councillor Statham.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It was just to second what our leaders just said. This isn't a decision that Tamworth Borough Council have made and it's a rarity. There's lots of other councils that have had to make this decision. I think we're all aware of the financial situation we're in. And sadly, that is down to lack of funding from national government over a decade. So that's my position on it. And we have had to make difficult decisions. We can't just use reserves for everything, which seems to be. I mean, this motion is literally saying that. We just can't, that isn't a sustainable approach. We have to make tough decisions. I think I would feel uncomfortable if there were surrounding towns who didn't have Sunday parking charges, but there are lots of councils around us that have had to make this decision. It isn't a rare one, and it is a small charge. We're not asking residents for £10, £50 to park. So that's my take on it, and I support Carol and what she's just said. We are supporting the most vulnerable. We've made really, really difficult decisions, despite what Councillor Clements has alluded to in her previous statements, and this was one of them, which we did go back and forth on. But it came down to those decisions of we either cut things such as disabled living adaptations, or we introduce something that's going to generate an income for the council that's going to balance the budget. So we took a decision that we weren't going to use reserves for every single answer and every single difficult decision. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I'm just going to check. Did Councillor Margaret Clark want to speak or not? Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, so request please, Nolan principles,
Yeah.
no personalities conflicting. We're all getting heated up here. I think budgets always make people heated up. Could we approach it with all the Nolan principles in place by everybody who signed for them in this chamber? Thank you.
Nice. Thank you, Councillor Clark. Who got their hand up first? Was it Councillor Summers first and then Councillor Doyle?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to point out that you can't possibly reduce disabled facility grants. That's not possible, full stop. And it's just a long line of things said in the last few minutes which just don't ring true whatsoever. And it's just line after line of false statements being made. And we've been given a perfectly clear and workable amendment, which means you don't have to put the charges in on Sunday. They don't have to happen at all. They aren't needed to prop up your, quite frankly, rubbish budget. And we could do without them and not tax our residents even more than you're already taxing them. It's everything you're saying is unsubstantiated. Saying that the vulnerable are going to be robbed, how disingenuous is that? That's utter rubbish. You're really going to say that just because you don't put parking charges up on a Sunday, that the vulnerable are going to be disadvantaged? Come on, really? I fully support Councillor Oates' motion, and I will be absolutely amazed if the rest of the room can't. You have a choice now to, show Tamworth that, you could potentially be trusted a little bit. You can't really be trusted at all to run this council, let's face it. But, you know, you could show today that you're listening to them. Nobody wants Sunday parking charges. Nobody, surely. You've been given a way of avoiding them tonight by having the budget remain legal and balanced. If you don't support this, then it just goes to show exactly what the rest of your budget is, which is total utter rubbish.
Like Councillor Clark just said about the no principles, please stop with that was a personal attack. And me as mayor, I took that as a personal attack, and as mayor, I have a final say. So please, can we just keep that in mind? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, apologies if anyone took it as a personal attack.
Yeah.
That was an attack on Labour's policies, not personally, not towards anybody in particular. But if anybody was offended, I apologise.
Thank you. Councillor Stephen Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This isn't going to be complimentary about the budget, and it's not an attack at individuals. But it's a question about priorities. I find it amusing that it's been stated that Tamworth Borough Council was left in such an appalling state that Labour have had to act to save the council. Yet, in their own words, they can renovate the front desk rather than finding a cheaper location in the town centre and actually moving it into the centre of the town, which would have cost less, invest in an AV system for Marmion House, and the reuse of Marmion House as well, the chamber, refitting that on a building that is basically going to disappear in 2 to 3 years' time. I mean, to be honest, what sort of legacy are Labour going to leave? You squandered the money that was left to you. Thank you.
So we're still in the debate on the amendment. Does anyone want to say anything else, or am I going to bring the right to reply? Oh, no, just because I once in a the person put it forward gets the right to reply, and then he gets to say his motion again, so we all know what we're actually voting on. So go to the right to reply, Councillor Oates.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think everyone understands the motion. The motion is to amend recommendation 12 from the 140, call it 149,000 down to 49, so remove £100,000 from recommendation 12, which is suggesting that is put into a piggy bank and hidden away, and we use that to remove the need for the Sunday car parking increase. I've said everything I need to say on this, and my colleagues in the room have debated it, so I'm happy to go to the vote on that one, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. And as it's budget, we go to a name vote, so it'll be a name vote. Oh, no? Okay. Fair enough then. I thought not on the amendment. Okay. No worries. So those in favour of the amendment, please raise your hands. Oh.
Mr. Mayor, I was standing for a named vote. If anybody wants to join me.
Oh. I thought it was a name vote for a budget.
On the amendment.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I know that. Yeah. Okay, let's go into name vote then. Oh, do you want me to? Oh. Okay. Yeah, well, I've got to keep an eye on that then. Councillor Craig Adams, are you for the amendment or against?
Against.
Yeah. Councillor Arkney.
Against.
Councillor Bailey. Councillor Lee Clark.
Against.
Councillor Margaret Clark. Councillor Claymore. Councillor Clements. I was going to say Councillor Coates. Abstain. Councillor Couchman.
Against.
Councillor Daniels.
Against.
Councillor Dean.
Against.
Councillor Doyle. Councillor Foster.
Against.
Councillor Hadley. Councillor Kingston.
For.
Councillor Norkie.
Against.
Councillor Oates.
For, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Pallett. Yeah. Councillor Lewis Smith.
Against.
Councillor Samuel Smith.
For.
Councillor Statham.
Against.
Councillor Summers.
For.
Councillor Turner.
For.
Councillor Woodrup. Sorry.
For.
Councillor Wells.
Against.
Councillor Wood.
Against.
Thank you. Just counting up now. Okay, so the amendment hasn't been passed. It was against was 16, for was 10, and 1 abstention. Thank you. Okay, so we'll go back to the original part. Is anyone, going to debate, aren't we? Of the original budget. Councillor Oates.
Mr. Mayor, just to keep it fun, I have another amendment.
Okay.
That was well received, wasn't it?
Yeah, I just need more paper to make.
Yeah, a further amendment. I did promise you 3 earlier on, but I'm going to condense these 2 together. Mr. Mayor, we sit here, whether we're in the controlling group or the opposition group, we sit here as Tamworth Borough Council delivering services for the people of Tamworth. We do not sit here, Mr. Mayor, as the savings account for Tamworth. We're not about holding people's money. This is public money we have, and it's public money for the spend on public services. We should never forget that. In year 3 of this budget, there is £1.16 million in reserves. That's £1.16 million in the bank that could be spent on delivering services for the most vulnerable. We also have in this budget, Mr. Mayor, and this is the key to the amendment, we also have in this budget a 2.99% increase in council tax. And you will notice within the papers there is a 0% option, which leaves us with only £286,000 in year 3, which is below the threshold. So I'm not suggesting anything unreasonable here. What I'm suggesting is, instead of raising council tax by 2.99% and having £1.16 million in the bank, we halve that, and I propose council tax be set at 1.5% increase, not the 2.99% within the budget papers, giving us circa £370,000 in reserves at the end of the 3-year cycle. That's the first part of my amendment. The second part of my amendment, I'm struggling to find the page number for, but I raised earlier, page 87, I raised the miscellaneous corporate properties and the income attached to that. So my first amendment is council tax is only increased by 1.5% and not 2.99%. And my second amendment is that consideration is given under the miscellaneous corporate properties assessment and the review, and we award the successful Tamworth Football Club by giving them the land that they play on and removing it from the asset base of Tamworth Borough Council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so I'm guessing, Councillor Kingston.
Happy to second both of those amendments, Mr. Mayor, and reserve the right.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to go to the usual thing. Has anyone any questions about the amendment? Okay. We're going to skip the question part. Anyone want to start the debate on the amendment? Oh, Councillor Summers. Let me just...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wholly support this. I mean, why wouldn't we want to reduce council tax? After all, surely that is the best way of helping those struggling and the vulnerable, and in a way that, in fact, stays legal within a balanced budget as well. What a bonus. And as for giving the gift of taxpayers in the final dying days of Tamworth Borough Council, a reduction in their council tax, giving Tamworth Football Club the gift of their stadium. It can only be a good thing, and I wholly support it. I guess, though, we're going to hear lots of reasons why we can't do it and why it's bad because we proposed it.
Thank you, Councillor Summers. We're still in the debate. Remember, one-time chat, 10 minutes max. Who would like to go next? Okay. If we've got no one else who wants to speak on it. Oh, Councillor Kingston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is on the amendment. we've spoken a lot about local government review and devolution a little bit tonight, and I know we're going to at the subsequent meeting in March time. We've got to protect our assets for the people of Tamworth. So it makes perfect sense to be able to give Tamworth Football Club, who are supported by the residents of Tamworth, their own land. We've got to go down this process of protecting assets for the people of Tamworth. This is an ideal opportunity to do that by getting that piece of land, which if we were to ever grant houses to be built on there, we would literally be hung, drawn and quartered, you know. We need to start thinking about the future beyond Tamworth Borough Council. And this is what several of us who've already met have said. We've got to invest in the residents of Tamworth now. So it makes sense, which is why I'm supporting and seconding the motion put forward by Councillor Oates. It does, as Councillor Summers said, make absolute sense to, one, reduce council tax increases, and two, to start that process of protecting the land for the people of Tamworth, or our assets rather. And in doing so, Tamworth Football Club gets a big win and a big boost from us.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kingston. Oh, Councillor Daniels.
Thank you all. I don't think it's bad when you make suggestions. That's what this room is for. I said it last year, I'm going to say it again because I believe in it. No one's going to say this was last year Conservative budget, this year Labour budget, they'll say it's the Tamworth budget, and scrutiny matters. We think transparency is really important. And it is an idea. It is an ideal suggestion. But the use of "an" is not there. I note that it is 1940. We'll be leaving here at 8:30, and I don't think it's fair to the budget, to the process, and definitely not to Tamworth Football Club, riding high still well within the league, to say we're going to discuss just that element and none of the others in that time. So why not say, let's have Tamworth Football Club, not just that element of the land, but how they are supported, what we do better with them, rather than use this small space of time now, because we have looked at this budget already. There have been other opportunities to share ideas, to scrutinise. And this is the first time we're hearing about it. I just don't think it's enough time in order to say, is that the right course of action? It doesn't take away from it being a good idea, and whoever idea it is a good thing. And I appreciate that you've made some great suggestions this evening. I don't think this is the right one on this occasion at this time.
Thank you very much, Councillor Couchman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a former season ticket holder of Tamworth Borough Council, Tamworth Football Club, I do think it's a wonderful idea, but I would actually concur with Councillor Daniels and say it needs a proper debate. You can't just spring it on something and expect a council to make a decision without properly consideration of the facts. And I think, therefore, if you bring it forward as a proper motion at a future council meeting, I don't see why it couldn't be debated properly, and then we could make a proper and informed decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Statham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As an avid football fan myself, I think it's a fantastic idea. I think we really need to support, per se, grassroots football clubs, but Tamworth don't really fit into that category anymore. They're very, very successful. And I think it is a great idea, and I would be happy to support it. But I'm not, despite the politics around the budget, I'm not confident voting on it because I don't know the facts around it. I don't know the implications. So I agree with my colleagues completely in support of it, but it needs to come back here for a full debate, and we need the information around it, because I think it's a disservice. I personally think it's a disservice if we make this decision based on a sentence. I've got no facts around it, no figures, no implications, so happy to support after I've got those, but right now I can't make a conscious decision in supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Arkney.
Thanks, Gareth, and thanks, guys. I'm not a football fan. I don't know anything about football. I've said it a lot of times as well. We have different asset plans that are coming down the road for each of our assets. It would be reckless to just say we're going to give away an asset, even if it's to a great cause. We could give away all of our assets to great causes, and that would be a great impact on the community, but that isn't the way that we can operate as a council. As you know, we have a budget. we need to be conscious of our financial situation. And I agree that this can come back. I mean, when those asset plans come down the road, these things will be discussed, and we can discuss how we deal with. I don't know how a football pitch works. Do we sell it? Are they worth something? I don't know how they go. But at that point, that's when that conversation is appropriate, and not now before we have any information on that asset.
Thank you very much. Shall we go to Councillor Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to say much on this. Simply with regards to not having a council tax increase, I don't think that would be fair on the people of Tamworth, because we have budgeted for that council tax increase. People who are at the lower end of finances get support, so we're not saying that we're putting that strain onto those people. With regard to the football club, I get a feeling every time we mention local government reorganisation that there is a crisis, that people are so het up on getting things done so quickly. We're just at the start of this process. There's years to go before we get to the pot. There are years to go, whether you shake your head or not. There are years to go, Councillor Summers. It's not going to happen in 10 minutes. We haven't even put an expression of interest to join the debate yet. And with regards to giving one of our assets away, just in this chamber now, I am really not comfortable that we haven't looked at all the implications of that. There is going to be so many different bits around how we would do that with that land. And as Councillor Arkney said, I'm not sure that's fair to all the other people who use a piece of or one of our assets. You know, it would set a precedent. So I'm really not comfortable with that.
Thank you very much. Shall we move to the vote now of the amendment? Oh, sorry. Do you want your right to reply, Councillor Oates, and then say your amendment again?
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. C. The mover of an amendment does not have the right to reply.
Do you know, as it's part of the discussion and everyone's had their say, as Mayor, I can actually give the right to reply, and I will, because as I say, a right to reply, and then please put your motion forward again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and that's why I thanked you the first time round for inviting me to reply, because as stated, I don't automatically get it. Just to correct the leader, I'm not suggesting no council tax increase. I'm suggesting 1.5%. And the reason I'm suggesting 1.5% is after 3 years, there's still £1.1 million in the bank. There's still £1.1 million available. In terms of, I'm going to be brief because I might get shut up by the looks of it. In terms of Tamworth Football Club and giving them the land, I've heard the argument we can't do it tonight because we don't have enough information. We're being asked tonight to vote for GNR 11 policy change of £100,000 income from Sunday parking. I don't have the rates or the figures or any information on Sunday car parking, but I'm being asked to vote for that. I'm asking that we give the land, the bit of the land that Tamworth Borough Council owns under the football club, to the football club. The details will come out as part of that process. It's not going to be free. There'll be legal arguments. There'll be all sorts of other issues. What I'm saying is we agree to do it and then we start implementing it. Imagine this whole document in front of us, Mr. Mayor, is agreement to do things. The implementation starts with the new financial year. Much of the detail in terms of these policies and the implementation of these policies isn't within this budget. It isn't within this budget paper. If we look at the whole budget, we need this and the budget book and the statement of accounts. We don't have that this evening. We only have headlines. The giving of Tamworth Football Club's land to Tamworth Football Club is exactly the same. It's a headline. The implementation of will come later. In terms of local government reorganisation, do we have to move stuff quickly? We've got years left. Let's face it, local government is not the most dynamic beast in the world. We do have years left. We don't have many years left. We need to review everything that takes place. We need to review our assets. The current asset review is about how do we best use those assets, or how do they fit into our budget. We aren't going to exist in 3 or 4 years' time. The question about assets is completely different. So, Mr. Mayor, I urge this council to take the brave step and offer Tamworth Football Club the land it stands on. I also ask this council to take the brave step and look at that £1.166 million at year 3 that we're hoarding and reduce that by 50% and increase council tax by 1.5%. So the amendments are that council tax only be increased by 1.5% and not 2.99% as per the papers, and that this council gives Tamworth Football Club the land that it stands on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're going to go to the vote now. Oh.
Can I call for a named vote on that, Mr. Mayor?
Well,
And if Tamworth Football Club don't get its use football parlance, they was robbed.
just seeing how many go up. Right. Did you go up or did you stay up? No. Okay. I just went real quick. I thought it was like, so it was 6 people, yeah. Okay, so we're going to the name vote on the amendment. Going to go round the councillors, starting with Councillor Adams. Are you for or against the amendment?
Against.
Okay. Councillor Arkney.
Against.
Councillor Bailey. Councillor Lee Clark. Councillor Margaret Clark. Councillor Claymore. Councillor Clements. I will abstain. Councillor Couchman.
Against.
Councillor Daniels.
Against.
Councillor Dean.
Against.
Councillor Doyle. Councillor Foster.
Against.
Councillor Hadley. Councillor Kingston.
For.
Councillor Norkie. Councillor Oates. Councillor Pallett. Councillor Lewis Smith.
Against.
Councillor Samuel Smith.
For.
Councillor Statham.
Against.
Councillor Summers.
For.
Councillor Turner. Councillor Woodruff.
For.
Against. Against.
That amendment was lost against one. So we're going to go back to the original item. I think we're still in debate of it, I believe. It's been a while. So has anyone got more questions about the budget? Sorry, not questions, we're in debate. Anyone else want to speak on the debate of the original budget, not the amendments or anything? Who? Sorry, Councillor Foster, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, there was some mention about the fact that we've got all these reserves and stuff, but having taken over the portfolio holder for waste management, there was a deficit of £350,000 not in the budget for this year because nobody knew that we were actually almost purchased a whole fleet of new waste vehicles because we were not engaged with Lichfield District Council because we didn't really talk to them, engage with them. So there's, if you take that, that's a contract over 7 years with a 7-year option to actually as an option to renew it. So that accounts for a considerable amount of money. If we just look at the first 3 years, the budget, because that's probably we're only going to be in existence for. That accounts for £1 million gap that we knew nothing about when we took over. So the budget wasn't balanced before because you were missing £1 million from it. Thank you.
Councillor Statham next. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I want to address the comments that were made by Councillor Clement stating that this is clearly an officer-led budget. As someone who isn't in the Cabinet and doesn't have regular kind of interactions with officers, I can promise you it wasn't. We had hours and hours and hours of meetings where we redlined things that we told the officers to not touch. We made sure that this budget was driven by our pledges that we campaigned on in the May election, driven by our priorities as a group, our morals as a group, and as someone who is quite loud in that room and not in the Cabinet, I made sure that we stuck to those, and I can promise you that. I held the Cabinet to account. I was not their friend in that room. I made sure that it was not officer-led, so I want to reassure you that, and I'm not lying to you. And I don't think it's fair on the rest of us who spent, you know, there was one session, I think, the chief exec was with us till gone 10:30 in the evening, going over everything to make sure that we scrutinised all of it. So, like I said, it was not an officer-led budget, and we have had to make really difficult decisions that a lot of us weren't necessarily comfortable with, and we went back and forth on a lot of things. And the reality is the budget wasn't great that we inherited. I'm not going to stand here and slam the previous controlling group, but it wasn't great. There were decisions that, as Councillor Foster's just discussed, were made that probably shouldn't have been made. It wasn't great. So I can't stand here and say that everything's sunshine and roses when it isn't, because if it was, we wouldn't have had to make the decisions that we have. I think some of the policies we've had to look at, and we've had to make decisions on bringing income into the council, such as the car parking. I know, again, it's a really tough decision to introduce that, but we have to start to bring income into the council. For too long we haven't been bringing income in, and efficiently, and we have to. And in our opinion as a group, a balanced budget is not through relying on your reserves. It's about making difficult decisions, and it's about making those decisions that the opposition would call political suicide, quote. So again, I appreciate the motions that have been put forward, and I think it's great that we've had this scrutiny and this level of scrutiny. That's what we wanted as a group. We wanted challenge. We wanted to have some of our thoughts provoked by you guys opposite us. And I think it shows that to residents that you guys as on opposition are being effective. You are reading the budget, and you are holding us to account on it, and I thank you for that. It's important that an opposition does that. But to stand here and say that the budget you guys left was fine would not be fair. I know how hard the cabinet has worked to present us with cuts. Some people presented us with cuts, and us as a group turned around and said, no, you're not doing that. So it was not officer-led. It was really difficult. We spent hours and hours and hours going over it with a fine-tooth comb. I stand by all the decisions that my colleagues have made, and I know that us in the cabinet support them all the way. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Samuel Smith next that would like to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few comments. One thing to counter what Councillor Foster just mentioned in terms of last year and the budget not balancing. Clearly, obviously, it did balance, so that's obviously not right. This is about, obviously, the movement of money and working out priorities. This budget is doom and gloom, a bit like the national government, really. There's no positivity, there's no inspiration, there's no creativity, and it's just full of negativity. And I get you want to be responsible. I totally understand that. We need to be responsible. But all you keep going on about is the reserves. Many of in the instance of the reserves, many of that has actually been financed through asset investments previously done by the last controlling group. That was on the back of creativity and outside box thinking. So yeah, it's all doom and gloom. There's nothing really here. It's all about tax. It's all about charging. The Sunday charging on parking in particular is a complete disaster. You want people to come into the town. We're not Lichfield, that's the reality. We are a town that's increasingly empty. We need to attract people into the town. We need to attract businesses. We need to attract investment. We need to attract private investment. And unfortunately, this budget does nothing to help that cause.
Still in debate. Anyone want to chat, or do you want to move to the right reply and listen to the recommendations? Oh. I've got Councillor Kingston first, then Councillor Oates. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the controlling group, you have the right to present your budget, and as opposition members from various different political groups, and some of us no longer or not political groups, it would be down to the opposition to present an alternative budget, because the reality of being here for nowhere near as long as Councillor Oates, but almost as long as, remind me, Councillor Clements, names are getting worse. It is the duty of this council to pass a budget. We have to do that. We, as a 30. Now, that doesn't mean we all have to agree, and it's clear that there's disagreements tonight in the budget presented towards us. I mean, I could look at stuff like this and say, and I'll refer to it again, with local government reorganisation and the expectation that we are no longer going to be here in 2028, we've got on one of the lines, where are we? To make the climate change officer post, which is currently a fixed term 3-year post, permanent, it's going to cost £1,000. Now, we could save that. It's only £1,000 in the scheme of things, but every little bit helps. Why would we want to make that role permanent when we know if we do, we're almost certainly going to be faced with redundancy or some form of cost further on down the line? We've spoken to death about the Sunday parking charge, and we could quite easily debate that ever. But it's clear, my opinion differs from the controlling group, which is fine, because we're not here to agree on absolutely everything. We've heard about the Marmion House new council chamber, and Councillor Dean has made her position very, very clear that she thinks this building is unsuitable. Yes, it probably is unsuitable for a long-term base for this council without major overhaul. But we don't need major overhaul. We can just pootle along until we disband. We've got on PP4, reduce number of scrutiny committees. Again, there's a saving there. So there's good stuff in this budget. It's not all doom and gloom, as some of us on this side of the chamber would believe. If you look at the HRA account, there's a lot of good stuff going on in that, which is supporting some of our vulnerable residents, which is great. But I can't support this budget, but I refuse to vote against a budget. It's not often I will abstain, so when it comes to the vote, I will abstain rather than vote against. But I'll leave you with a final thought. You could save £300,000 a year. Dead easy. We do away with councillors' allowances. We could reinvest that if we truly, truly do want to stand up for the people of Tamworth. In the few years we've got left, we could do away with councillors' allowances. Now, I'm going to make a pledge now. This budget starts with the new municipal year, whenever that, in a few months' time. April. I'm just being told it's April. From April, I will refuse to accept my councillor's allowance as a gesture of goodwill towards the vulnerable people of Tamworth. It'll be up to officers to decide what happens with that £500, £5,000 a year over the next 2 years. And I urge all other councillors, if you truly, truly do stand by the idea of helping the vulnerable people in Tamworth, let's do away with those allowances. £300,000 or thereabouts to be ploughed back into the people of Tamworth. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kingston. Before I move on to Councillor Oates, Councillor Kingston, I tried that when I became a councillor. It's not possible. I wanted to give all mine up, so no, that it can't happen, trust me. Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have before us a budget which is clearly balanced over 3 years, with a surplus over 3 years of £1.16 million. We have a budget which, despite being told repeatedly we shouldn't use reserves to balance, uses £3.8 million in year 2. That's next year. It's not year 3 to try and squeeze it through to balance it. That's in year 2. And we then have £1.16 million surplus at the end of year 3. So surely we can use that 1.6 million or even 600,000 of that, so we still stay legal with the £500,000 reserves, and reduce the impact on the reserves in year 2. So we're told we shouldn't use them, and yet there's an opportunity not to use them, but the figure's in there at 3.8 million. I'll repeat what I said earlier. We are not the savings bank for Tamworth. We are here to deliver services for the people of Tamworth. We have a finite lifetime. Some people have said 3 years, some people said 4 years. It's a finite lifetime. We have, if we read through the papers, we've got £12 million in investments. Yes, granted, they're giving us a return and they're propping up the revenue budget. Where's that 12 million quid going in year 4, when TBC ceases to exist? Will it go to other areas in Staffordshire who maybe haven't invested in the way we have? This is time to reevaluate where we're at. This is time to say, hold on a minute, the future's changed significantly. What are we protecting? Are we literally putting £1.16 million in the bank for the sake of Tamworth Borough Council's existence when Tamworth Borough Council isn't going to exist? We've heard how difficult it is to set a budget. Yeah, I know, I've been there, done it a few times. You know what? We come along with promises, we come along with commitments, and then the reality is it's not as simple as what we said on the doorstep. You've got to finance it, you've got to deliver it, and also you've got to tick a load of other boxes that you're being forced to do by government. Mr. Mayor, the group opposite have proposed an increase in car parking charges. The group opposite have proposed a 2.99% increase in council tax. We were told at the last full council by the leader of the council that they could not object to an item because it was Labour Party policy. I assume from that those people opposite all agree with stripping pensioners of winter fuel allowance and adding inheritance tax to farming. The group opposite had the choice to continue with the level of green bin fees. Yes, it would have been met by the money we've squirreled away as the savings bank for England, but they chose not to. They chose to increase green bin fees. In the 90s, there was a general election, and the slogan was education, education, education. Is the current slogan coming out of the Labour Party, both locally and nationally, taxation, taxation, taxation? Because this is what we are seeing here. We are seeing tax under the guise of fees and charges, which we don't have to use. We don't have to go down that line. £1.16 million in the budget after 3 years, it's balanced. Previous years' budgets have always been balanced. £12 million in investments, generating a revenue, I appreciate that, but what happens after the 3 years? We've got estimates of business rates going down after 2 years. We've got estimates of the settlement going down, but we're promised a 3-year one. Yeah, I've heard that before. We were promised a 3-year settlement back in the early 2000s. We were promised a settlement in the early 2010s, a 3-year one. It may or may not happen. So, err on the side of caution. I get that. When you err on the side of caution and you've still got £1.16 million surplus after 3 years and £12 million investment and all the capital that you're not spending, you're in a quite plush position. And that money, at some point, will go elsewhere. It's up to us to deliver the best services for the people of Tamworth with the money we've got. It's not up to us to be the savings account for taxation in Tamworth. Mr. Mayor, I will not be supporting this budget because it is simply taxation, taxation, taxation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Couchman, Councillor Lewis-Smith and Councillor Adams. Just be aware it is coming up to 8:10. Councillor Couchman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No council likes to cut services or increase charges, especially this Labour administration. The hard fact, though, is that efficiencies have to be made to balance the medium-term budget and stop balancing it by continually taking money from reserves. So why are we in this situation? Because the party opposite, when in power, consistently didn't make the difficult decisions that we now have had to make. It is not as if they didn't know about it, because year after year they were warned in budget reports of shortfalls over £1 million. Each year the amount was highlighted in black bold print in the documents. Yet last year we had another example of their failure to take difficult decisions with the green bin charge. When the green bin charge was introduced, it was to be self-financing. In 2023, Lichfield recognised that the bin charge didn't meet the cost of the service and raised their charge to £40 per bin. What did Tamworth do? They took 60,000 from reserves to top up the service without telling the council what they'd done. So this year, instead of a gradual rise, we in Tamworth have had to increase the green bin charge by £6 a year. I turn to another area of the budget, the reopening of Marmion House. Although it was their desire to get rid of Marmion House, they did nothing about it. So we have a building that was standing empty for the public, but was still being used by officers on a much smaller scale. We decided to reopen the front desk so that Tamworth people could have a direct face-to-face experience with the council and not rely only on digital contact. Mr. Mayor, I refer to the report issued on the 19th of February this year by the Women in Equality Select Committee of the House of Commons, entitled The Rights of Older People. Section 3 of the report deals with digital exclusion and notes that the response to COVID-19 has precipitated a move to digital by default. Whilst the report congratulates many older people because they were the pioneers of computing, of digital technology, many older people feel and reported that they felt they were being dependent and forced to rely on other people. They were being left behind. They were not part of the 21st century, and they felt past their sell-by date. I don't, you're all right. There were 3 key areas identified of digital exclusion. The first was local authority services and benefits, council-administered benefits, council tax reduction scheme, applying for the blue badges, car park payment apps, something we should all bear in mind. The other 2 were the NHS and banking. If you're not digital proficient and are frightened of scams, it is natural that you want to speak to someone. So I'm pleased that Marmion House has reopened to the public, and as are the 500 plus people who have already come through the doors. This financial decision has been taken to protect our most vulnerable and older residents. It is also part of our corporate plan to be a caring, accessible and effective council. Mr. Mayor, I will be supporting the budget tonight.
Thank you very much. Going to Councillor Lewis-Smith now, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's all well and good let's spend all the saying let's spend all the money left within the bank, but there's still a job to do for however many years that TBC has left. And if hypothetically the government decided that local government reorganisation was not the right path for Tamworth and the plans change, but we've drained the coffers, we would be in big trouble, just to point that out. Right, we have our priorities and the budget with tenants in mind. I don't believe the previous budgets from the opposition did that to the extent that they claim it was. We have reopened the front desk, and as I've said, it's only been 3 weeks of the council front desk being opened. and it's seen 586 people use the service, which is more than the TIC would have seen in a year. A front desk, which you said, as an opposition, was perfectly acceptable and would see within... I'm sorry, I've already repeated my point there about seeing the number of people within a year, but I'll come on to that a little bit more in a moment. So, as Councillor Ben Clark is not here at the moment, I'm going to say a few words for him. So when we came to power in May, 0% of fire risk remedial actions were taken, 0% of Legionella remedial actions were taken. With us in charge, 100% of fire risk remedial actions were done in the years 23 to 24, with 24 to 25 underway. This is the exact same case for Legionella risk assessments too. We have had to invest to get these percentages to where they are now. These sat at 0% under the opposition and led to us immediately referring ourselves and the council to the regulator for social housing. We've increased funding for DFGs to match demand, and we've implemented a yearly increase to the budget in anticipation of increased service demand, and it will be reviewed as and when needed. The amount of funding given by our government stands at 500,000, and we add in 300,000 to ensure that the most vulnerable in our society are provided for. So comments saying that we could not roll back on any DFG funding are untrue, because we have added our own funding towards it, funding that this council are protecting. So on comments made on the reopening of the front desk, I feel like a broken record. The reopening of the front desk at Marmion House was the most cost-effective method. Anyone with sense could see that the TIC was not an appropriate place for the front desk. There was an application for grant funding to rebuild the council offices on Upper Gungate, but it failed. The previous administration also looked at relocating into both Anchorside and into the Moorgate building, but they were deemed too expensive as they went into the millions. What amuses me is that the opposition even brought forward a motion for us to look into using the Moorgate building as a new home for the council, knowing full well that you've already looked into it whilst in power, and it was deemed too expensive by yourselves, and it just shows that you are using these motions for political point scoring. We haven't spent millions, and we haven't gone into we have gone with the most sensible option to reopen a much-needed facility in the town and to begin to reuse the asset we already have. Of course, there will be costs associated with that, but those costs would be there no matter what. And considering when we came into power, there were no viable plans in place for a new front desk or home for the council, we've took this action forward at a reasonable cost of reopening the front desk at only £82,000 in the final figures, a cost which is much cheaper than any other option we could have went with. And as the figures show, and as the evidence shows, it's a vital service that the residents of Tamworth need.
Thank you. Before I bring Councillor Adams in, like I said, we've got a couple of more people that want to speak. Also, we've got to hear the 27 recommendations read out, and Councillor Dean has to have the right to reply as well. So just bear that in mind. We have literally 13 minutes left. Councillor Adams. And a name vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would say, if was it not the best, I would look to spend more money. I would look not to pay any tax, put any tax rises up. But we've got back with reality. We don't have the money to keep doing that. And you can't just spend on reserves. Okay, 1 point super, got some money left over in 3 years. That's a good thing. Because we don't know if the evolution actually going to happen. We think it will happen. We plan for it will happen. But it's not actually done yet. It's not actually decided 100%. A government might decide how it can't be do it. They might decide we can. So we need to be ready for every possibility. We need to look at for people now, not in 3 years' time and think like, oh, we've just spent 100 million now, we've got nothing left. We need to take care of people. It budget, it fair budget. It protect the vulnerable. I would look to spend a lot more, but we don't have a magic money tree. And we can't just spend all our reserves because we're irresponsible. And we have a responsibility to put it on managing the money responsibly and not irresponsible, just spending it out of nowhere and wasting it. And even if we do get devolution, and it be a good thing, we'll be in a good place. With £1 million spare, surplus. That'd be brilliant. That money can help to build a new council, a Unity Council, and that money will still help Tamworth. If we go in debt, imagine what the Unity be like. We can't not be responsible for our public money. We can't take care of the vulnerable. We can't take them from reserves like past years. We need to be able to make a council work for the next 3 years and maybe beyond, or next 3 years and that surplus for the Unity. We don't know what will happen. We might start looking at setting up trusts for our assets, or we might have parish councils. All that can cost funding. So we might need money for options for later on as well. It budget, it fair. It's not brilliant by any chance, but it's fair and it's balanced.
I've got Councillor Bailey now. Yeah.
So I've heard a few things, obviously, while I've been sitting here. The first thing around devolution, I've heard that, may not happen. My understanding is that Stoke Council, which I believe is Labour, have actually accepted the invitation from the government to start the process. So as far as I'm aware, that means the process has started. With regards to the budget for last year, I'm pretty sure Labour actually voted that through last year. And also just a reminder, which I'm sure I don't have to, is that the reserves are actually the public's funds, not, they are the councils, but they're actually owned by the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Okay, I'm going to go to Carol Dean now.
Sorry, do I need to do something about the time? I don't know what the process is. I don't know what the magic words are.
Well, is there any more people that want to speak on the debate first before? Oh, okay. So we will probably need to do something about the time then, I'm guessing. Yeah, no worries. Councillor Summers would like to speak.
Thanks. First, can I propose an extension past 8:30? Hopefully not for long. Seconder? Thank you. Right, there we go. That's that dealt with. Right, just on the debate, I know we need to do a vote. I know. You can do that in a minute. Let me speak on the debate, if you don't mind first. At the end of the day, Councillor Oates has been around local government finance for 20 years. He knows it backwards. I trust his opinions and what is possible, the art of the possible in respect to the budget, more than anybody else in this room. If he says things are possible and he's moved amendments with sound backing to say that they are tonight, then it's possible. Unfortunately, as I said, we've just heard lots of reasons why things can't happen, which are frankly disgraceful. But anyway, that's all I've got to say on the debate, Mr. Mayor. You can go for the extension now.
Yeah, so obviously we had a motion, we had about 8,000 seconders. So obviously the motion was to extend the meeting. I'm not going to do the questions, I'm not going to do debate. Those in favour, do you want to raise your hands? Well, I'm not raising up. Keep them up, please, so you can just see. It's 4.9 and 0.1, 4.9.2. Yeah, it's carried. Is there anyone else that wishes to... Oh, bloody hell. Councillor Daniels on the debate then.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will keep it short. Councillor Oates, you mentioned education, and it clearly had an impact on you. Your rhetoric is really impressive, and if you're ever in the vicinity of my academy, please swing by, because we had the rule of three, we've had repetition. I particularly enjoyed the part where you said about the group opposite. I like the use of statistics when it works, and some really emotive language with hoarding. But if it's reserves, they were reserved, they could have been spent, like you said, for the public good. I really enjoyed as well kind of the time when you were turning to make sure the audience was addressed and feel involved. but what I don't like the sound of is bankruptcy. And you, as has been raised by Councillor Summers, had received information when you created your budgets after the year. And as you said, it's not an easy process. Well, we had information from our officers too, and that word was used. We don't want to go like other councils. And I believe, thanks to previous effective financial management and the continuing effective management, we're going to avoid that, because then none of us can help our residents if we haven't got a budget that works for now. Finally, taxation as a burden. We've got it in three repetitions, nice use of triple. We don't believe that it is. It is not a burden, it is a societal boost. It is a way of saying that every single resident, regardless of income, deserves effective infrastructure and strong public services. And we want to make sure that when there is additional funds, that scrutiny from you remains, to make sure we spend that effectively for the benefit of all our Tamworth residents, however they are effectively and future governed.
Okay, there you go. I've got the okie dokie for you, Councillor Clements. Okay, so we're going to go to the closing part now with the recommendations and the right to reply from Councillor Dean, unless anyone. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I haven't prepared a speech. I have just got lots and lots of notes here of things that have been said that, of course, I don't agree with. The issue around there still being £1.16 million in reserves at the end of year 3. As Councillor Oates and many on the opposition, because they've been here for so long, will know, we never know what is round the corner. That 1.16 million could be wiped out on one thing. We could have the roof fall in on the castle and it would be our job to replace it. You know, we can't assume that that money is always going to be there. We know that we've had to put money into future high street funds out of our reserves. We have to be prudent on making sure that there is some money there. And as I think it was Councillor Adams said, we can't be seen to wipe that out as we go into whatever arrangement we go in. That really wouldn't be fair. What we do want to do is we want to look at those finances. We want to look at that asset plan. We want to see what we've got, what the cost or what the benefit could be of those things, and then see how we can use it to the benefit of people. But that can't be done in a panic. We've already, I think what I've thought of as I've been listening to this is some of the stuff that has been talked about is already in place. That asset plan is already in place. Yes, it will need to be tweaked with regard to the local government reorganisation and how we look at that. One of the other sides of having some money in reserves, and we talk about the money that we've got in the bank, shall we say, so that people can understand what we're talking about. We've had figures quoted to us of how much this process may cost, multi-million pound to go through this process. Who's going to pay for that if we wipe out the money that we have in the bank? Will we be expecting somebody else to pick up that bill? With regard to Marmion House, what can we say about that? It was there when we took over control. There were no proper plans in place to do anything with it. And as local government reorganisation has come about, why would we now be looking to move out of there, spend money? We need to look at what we've got. We've got the front desk open. We're going back in the council chamber. We have our staff there. It's our home. It's the council's home. We need to make the most of what we've got. We would like to do more with it. And before local government reorganisation came about, we were looking at what the plans could be. We don't know yet where the home of the new unitary will be. Maybe Tamworth will be the centre of that. It could be that we need Marmion House. You know, we can't just have this throwaway idea that nothing that we've got at the moment isn't any good. As regard councillor allowances, I don't know where to start on that. It's nice that you're in that position, Councillor Kingston, that you can say that, but there's an awful lot of people who can't. If I just say my own personal experience, I had a full-time job. Doing this job, I have had to lose a day and a bit from my full-time job to be able to do the job I'm doing. You know, my council allowance goes some way towards recompensing me for that. But, you know, lots of people have, being a councillor sometimes costs money. You know, people need taxis to get here. There are all sorts of things. Wherever I go, people expect me to give them money. You know, there is that thing. We're leaders in our communities. People expect us to be that leader. You know, you go somewhere, you put in a tenner in the raffle. Yeah. Oh, right. Well, you know, what can I say about that? So, you know, I think we're disenfranchising people if we say that we cut out councillors' allowance, and that's the reason that they were put in place, and that's the reason why there's an independent remuneration panel, so that it's taken away from councillors, it's done by an independent panel, and we're not voting for our own wages. But it does need to be that there is something there so that all members of society can have that chance to represent. Because if I go back to my time when I started on the county council, I don't want to be rude, but it was full of a certain age of man, mainly, who was either a businessman who could afford to be in there all day, or they were retired. We don't want to see our local councils run like that. We want to have a cross-section, as we have in this chamber. We're very lucky for the cross-section of people that we've got here. So I wouldn't like to see that changed. Is there any more? Yeah, local government reorganisation. The one thing that keeps sticking in my mind is the day job goes on. We can't let that change our focus on everything and rush to do things. We need to do that day job and make sure that we're supporting those people that we want to support, doing the things. The street scene's still there, we're still cleaning the streets, we're still doing the community safety. All that isn't going to go away, and that needs to be done by Tamworth Borough Council until the minute that we're not here. So we can't walk away from that. Yes, Councillor Oates talked about the amount of money we were taking out of reserves to balance next year's budget. That wouldn't be my preference. I don't want to see us taking, I think it was £3.something million. I want to see us making lots more efficiencies, savings, and seeing if we can bring that amount down. And then we can look at what we want to do with those balances, because there may be something that comes up through this process where we can make a real difference. And isn't that why we're all here, to make a real difference? I will go on to the recommendations I'm told I have to read out. I'm really sorry about this. So, recommendation 1. So it's that council approve 1, the vision statement, priority themes, corporate priorities and outcomes for 2025 to 2030. That's at Appendix 1. 2, the proposed revisions to the service review budgets, policy changes, which is Appendix E of the MTFS. Number 3, the sum of £33,143 be applied from the council tax collection fund surpluses in reducing the council tax demand in 2025-26, which is Table 16, Section 7.8 of the MTFS. Number 4, the sum of £92,642 be applied to business rates collection fund deficits in 2025-26. This is Table 16, Section 7.8 of the MTFS. Number 5, that on the 12th of December 2024, the Cabinet calculated the council tax-based 2025-26 for the whole council area as 23,596. This is item T in the formula in section 31B, part 3 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992 as amended the Act. 6, that the council requirement for the council's own purposes for 2025-26 is £4,925,901, and this is in Appendix F and Appendix H of the MTFS. Number 7, the following amounts are circulated for the year 2025-26 in accordance with sections 31 to 36 of the Act A, £4,925,901 being the amount calculated by the Council in accordance with section 31A.4 of the Act as its council tax requirement for the year. This is item R in the formula in section 31A.4 of the Act. B, £208,076 being the amount at 6A above, item R, all divided by item T at 4 above, and I hope that everyone's following this. Calculated by the Council in accordance with section 31B1 of the Act as the basic amount of its council tax for the year. Number 8, the council tax level for the Borough Council for 2025-26 of £208.76p, an increase of 6.6p, which is the 2.99% increase on the 2024-25 level of £202.70p. And this is on a Band D property. Number 9, an aggregate council tax comprising the respective demands of the Borough Council, Staffordshire County Council, Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire Fire and Rescue Authority of £2,209.81p at Band D for 2025-26 be noted. This is Appendix H of the MTFS. Number 10, the council tax levels at each band for 2025-26, Appendix H of the MTFS. Number 11, in accordance with Section 11C of the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act 2023, a discretionary council tax premium of 100% on second homes and empty homes to be implemented with effect from the 1st of April 2026. Number 12, the sum of £148,939 be transferred to General Fund revenue balances in 2025-26, and this is Appendix F of the MTFS. Number 13, the summary General Fund revenue budget for 2025-26, Appendix F of the MTFS. Number 14, the provisional General Fund budgets for 2026-27 to 27-28, summarised at Appendix F of the MTFS as the basis for future planning. Number 15, minimum levels for balances of £500,000 to be held for each of the General Fund, Housing Revenue Fund, General Capital Fund and the Housing Capital Fund. Number 16, Cabinet to be authorised to release funding from the General Contingency Budget and that the release of funding for specific contingency items be delegated to the corporate management team in consultation with the leader of the council. Number 17, we're well through now. Proposed HRA expenditure level of £19,713,680 for 2025-26, which is Appendix 1 of the MTFS. 18, rents for council house tenants for 2025-26 to be set at an average of £110.40p, with a cost which 2024 was £107.50p. This is over a 48-week rent year, and it's including a 2.7 increase in line with the government's updated rent standard of 2025-26. Number 19, that rents for council house tenants due for 52 weeks in 2025-26 be collected over those 48 weeks. Number 20, the HRA deficit of £409,240 be transferred from the housing revenue account balances in 2025-26, and this is Table 18, Section 8.8 of the MTFS. Number 21, the proposed 5-year General Fund capital programme of £7,162,780 as details in Appendix 1 to the MTFS. 22, the proposed 5-year housing capital programme of £51,000,000 and £47,780 as detailed in Appendix 1 to the MTFS. The proposed 5-year housing capital programme of... Sorry, I need to go back. My apologies, I read the wrong amount for number 21. So the proposed 5-year general fund capital... I'm surprised Joe didn't jump up and shout at me. The proposed 5-year general fund capital programme is £7 million, £162,780 as detailed in Appendix 1 to the MTFS. And the 22 is the proposed 5-year housing capital programme, and this is £51,047,190 as detailed in Appendix 1 to the MTFS. Number 23 is to delegate authority to Cabinet to approve or add new capital schemes to the capital programme where grant funding is received or there is no net cost, additional cost to the Council. Number 24, the Treasury Management Strategy Statement, the Treasury Management Policy Statement, Minimum Revenue Policy Strategy and Annual Investment Statement 2025 to 26 as detailed at Appendix 3. 25 is the Prudential and Treasury Indicators and Limits for 2025-26 to 2027-28, which is contained within Appendix 3 to the MTFS. 26, the detailed criteria of the investment strategy 2025-26 contained in the Treasury Management Strategy. And lastly, 27, the corporate capital strategy and associated action plan as detailed in Appendix 1 of the MTFS. These are the recommendations I've placed before you.
Thank you very much. So now we go to a name vote as it's the budget. Going to go around the room. So those in favour of the budget say for, those against say against, and abstentions just say abstention. So Councillor Adams.
For.
Councillor Arkney.
For.
Councillor Bailey. Councillor Lee Clark. Councillor Margaret Clark. Councillor Claymore. Councillor Clement. I will abstain. Councillor Couchman. Councillor Daniels.
For.
Councillor Dean.
For.
Councillor Doyle.
Against.
Everyone's yelling now. Councillor Foster.
For.
Councillor Hadley. Councillor Kingston.
Abstain.
Councillor Norkey. Councillor Oates.
Against.
Councillor Pallett. Councillor Lewis Smith.
For.
Councillor Samuel Smith.
Abstain.
Councillor Statham.
For.
Councillor Summers.
Against.
Councillor Turner. Councillor Woodrup.
Abstain.
Councillor Wells.
For.
And Councillor Wood.
For.
Thank you. So, yeah, it's carried 15-4. It's been carried. So, thank you very much. That brings us now to the end of the meeting. I close the meeting at 8:43. I will thank you all for attending and thank you for the public in attendance. Well done. And thank you for those who are watching on YouTube and the live stream, and everyone have a good evening. Thank you.